So the Donald Trump clown show continues. I want to give you an update of what the headlines are, what's going on, and let's just jump right in. So this one really caught my attention. This is coming from Newark Airport. Headline reads, U.S. officials weigh pullback in Newark flights over outages. And basically what's going on, we're having trouble with our radar. It's been reported from our air traffic controllers. This is sort of comes along at a time where we have a string of problems at our airlines and our airports. I'll see here, it says, the urgency for such a meeting was underscored Friday by a second incident in which air traffic controllers guiding planes in and out of Newark Liberty International briefly lost communications and radar displays. It follows a similar breakdown on April 28th. Good thing though, it says here at least there's no injuries and no accidents, but this doesn't make me feel good, right? And effectively right now, the government is saying, hey, airlines, if you want, you can voluntarily reduce your flights. Whether or not, people still want to fly regarding, flying in and out of Newark, but it's not just there. We've had incidents, say in DC. I think Philadelphia also had incident as well, and it's unfortunately becoming systemic. And when I saw this headline regarding our airline safety in the USA, I was just thinking, this is sort of a microcosm of the overall picture with the Trump administration. Basically, our systems are breaking down, right? The system set up in place to just keep things flowing, properly. You don't want the airlines, the airports, Boeing, for example, to be in the headlines every single day. It shouldn't be something we even think about. You just hop on a plane, there's no worries, and you go about your business. But effectively, what's going on with the Trump administration is they're firing a bunch of people who are qualified. They are promoting people who are loyalists. That's what they're interested in. And then also they're giving benefits to various companies that may have, and use the example of Tesla or Elon Musk companies that may have technology that doesn't work. And as long as you kiss the ring, pay the bribe, whatever, you'll be promoted. And this is sort of what corruption looks like. And this is what it looks like when you're living in a society that's frankly falling apart, and largely due to this Trump culture. Again, this is in Newark. They're saying, and I'll read a little bit more of this if you guys have heard of this story. Airlines and U.S. aviation officials plan to meet on further flight cutbacks at Newark Airport following multiple breakdowns in radar systems. So again, they're cutting back flights there. You also have this story, and I think it's related again to the situation in the USA. It says U.S. officials meet with Mexico bankers on cartel financing risks. And it was fascinating because before, and basically what we're talking about is, how can we stop cartels, bringing up, substances, whether they're contraband from Mexico into the USA, and it could be any number of things. Trump actually said to the Mexican president, hey, what if we send the U.S. military down to Mexico? And she's like, no, thank you. You hang out in the USA and you can help us from there. We'll hang out here in Mexico and we'll do our thing. Now, this is actually something that could work is instead of, say, sending our military, just figure out a way to basically hit them where it hurts. Talking about the cartels, go for their bank accounts, these kind of things. So I always tell you guys this stuff. I'm all about solutions. I don't ever mean to put out the perspective that everything that Trump does is absolutely, abysmal and awful. I said a lot of it is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I just automatically assume so. I just read everything and give you an honest and fair opinion on this stuff. So this one actually, yes, if you want to really effectively go after drug cartels, go after their money for sure. So this is what it says. I thought it was an interesting one. A U.S. Treasury Department official made an unannounced visit to Mexico's annual banking convention to discuss stepping up efforts to combat organized crime finances. Now, the unannounced part's an interesting one. You could read that a couple ways. You could read that, well, if you really want to, help out with Mexico, coordinate efforts, make it, announced, don't do that sort of thing. But to be fair, maybe if you feel like that it's so corrupt there that you can't do it that way, you got to do it unannounced in a way. But either way, go after the money. I think that is a good strategy. Doesn't commit troops, and it may actually be the most effective way to help with things coming across the border that we don't want. Also says here, Scott Rembrandt, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Strategic Policy, met with top bankers to express the administration's resolve after President Trump designated cartels as terrorists, okay? And then here was a quote here. We all agree that this is not business as usual, and we're ready for the task. We have to be more nimble in the way we communicate, not only about best practices, but also specific information so we can act more promptly on both sides of the border. Now, I wish, though, that the way that we would tackle the problems in the USA would be sort of, and I don't mean like exactly this way, but I'll just say this, in ways that at least make logical sense. And so that's why I like to bring up, various things that the Trump people are up to. Yeah, go after money, 100%. The other thing too I want to bring into consideration when we talk about, say, the airlines or fighting the drug crisis is that there are a lot of people in service in the American government that just want to do a good job. They want to do the right thing. They want to serve the American people. And the thing that you really need in any one of these circumstances is quality leadership, right? You have people willing to serve. Don't be the Trump people and just fire, all of these civil servants, these kind of things. Like, lead them in the right direction, and invest in the country and invest in your people, and things will be okay. Because we actually do have a lot of qualified people in government, and I mean to say that because the Trump and the Musk, they try to make it sound like everyone who works for the federal government is living free, and they're just playing with your tax dollars and doing all these terrible things all the time. And no, actually, they're out there to protect you. The thing that's going bad is when Trump is out to fire people who are there to protect you. And like I said, something like this, I'm actually all for. Yeah, but by all means, go after the cartel money. And you can see right behind me, there's actually someone working on one of the sculptures right now. It's about maybe 5 to 10 people out here working on them. It's actually quite cool. We're still working on them. We got the bulldozer right there, actually a couple of them. And the festival starts next week, so I'll keep you guys updated on this thing. And I appreciate you watching. Regarding the money situation, though, things do appear to be dire in USA. I'm just to be honest with you. It looks like this is a Treasury. So Besant, you know how Besant is the guy that's always on TV coughing right before he tells a lie. This is something here. He actually might be telling the truth on this one. We may have to raise the debt ceiling. He's giving a warning. And I'll read the headlines here. It says, Congress should raise debt limit by July to avoid default. This has been an ongoing problem in the U.S. government. Basically, we have a lot of deficit spending. We're running a national debt. And with the Trump doing the plans that they're doing, basically they want to give a ton of tax cuts. They want to, how about this? Tax cuts to the wealthy, let's make it clear. And then they want to basically do taxes on tariffs basically all across the board. And it's going to punish people at the lower economic spectrums the most. Basically, you'll be paying a larger proportion of your income to Trump's tariffs that will then be funneled to Elon Musk. So to make sure that's clear. Now, the numbers don't add up either. And this is something that Besant is actually warning about. I'll read a little bit. It says, the government will exhaust resources to pay its bills in August. So that's just a few months away. I guess we're running out of money. But Congress will be gone nearly all that month, right? Because they go back to their home districts essentially. They're not in D.C. So the question is, can we get something done ahead of time? It's like we're constantly running up against this. And I understand that generally speaking, they just raise the limit, but it seems like there's going to be a point where we can't do this anymore, especially when foreign countries, be it UK, be it Japan, be it China, could hold a lot of U.S. basically debt and could just sell off treasuries whenever they want, and then borrowing costs would skyrocket and really be tough to fund the government, especially the way that Trump's math doesn't add up. So this is actually a serious concern. I know it doesn't reach the headlines, and people are all going to be talking about, hey, there's the first American Pope, and what did the Pope say, and Pope this, Pope that, and people will be buying, Pope on a rope, that kind of stuff. But I actually think this is probably one of the bigger stories. And again, how long can we sustain our financial system the way that it is? We'll read some more here. It says, lawmakers should raise the nation's borrowing limit by mid-July to prevent the federal government from defaulting on its bills while Congress is away for the August recess. And then I guess Besant sent a letter to Mike Johnson, so that would be the Speaker of the House. It says here, Treasury Department cash holdings and measures to put off certain payments would be expire in August, but lawmakers are scheduled to be back in their home districts. Here's a quote here. I respectively urge Congress to increase or suspend the debt limit by mid-July before its scheduled break to protect the full faith and credit of the United States. And we're currently sitting at a national debt of $36 trillion. So again, for these kind of things, the stuff that Trump is doing, one, it's erratic. We're living in the world of the tweeter, toddler, however you want to call this guy. You have internet troll number 1 and internet troll number 2, which is both Elon Musk and Trump. I'll let you decide who is 1 and 2. And that's essentially how our country is run, by like the whims of these lunatics, to be perfectly frank. But there are people who can see the math. On this particular example, I don't necessarily. It's a tough one. Okay, let's put it in the most simplest terms. In my opinion, because people always ask me what is your opinion on this stuff? I want a fair tax system, right? And I want a fair tax system that makes sense, that goes closer to a balanced budget. You don't have to go exactly balanced budget, but at least get closer. I don't want to go into more deficit spending. I don't think that's the way to go. One of the ways that you could actually shore up a big part of our deficit is actually not fire people at the IRS and just cut off all the loopholes for the basically billionaires like the Musks and whatever businesses that have various tax shelters around the world, those kind of things. And a lot of the stuff that Trump puts out every single day, it's like nonsense that either is just to gaslight you, to get you focusing on things that, in my opinion, aren't really big issues. I could care less, what's going on in trans this, trans that. It's always something to do with trans, right? Or I don't really care that much what's going on with the Pope. And no offense to Catholics out there, it's just not on my top of my radar. But it just feels like that's always the headlines, that kind of stuff. Whereas stuff that we should talk about more is basically the increasing wealth inequality between people, and they just always get you focusing on the things that are unimportant. And I try to cover all this stuff. I think the airline thing is also really important, but that's a larger sort of systemic problem that we have in the USA of too much corruption, and it's only getting worse. Now, for those people who are way to the left of me, and thank you for watching Channel First. But second, I'll say you're never going to find the perfect political candidate or perfect political leader that embodies every single thing that you want. Because I understand some people say, well, Chris, I don't participate because I don't like either party. I understand that. I'm not stupid. I can read. I literally read and talk with you guys stuff all the time. But you have to think about the system, the U.S., the world, as being like this really big ship, essentially, right? You want to say aircraft carrier, you can, but just it's really big, and we're all on this ship together, and it's very difficult to turn it quickly on a dime, right? And essentially, you just have to keep nudging it in the right direction. And if you don't participate, suddenly you start going in the wrong direction. And as you can see with the Trump situation, we're definitely going in the wrong direction. So I hope you understand my meaning of that, because guys, I get it. You're like, well, I just don't think any of these people at the top are any good, right? I understand that perspective entirely. I just want to address the point that don't expect to find perfect people, right? But at least get people that are more better in terms of choice, and put us in the closer to where we want to be, and don't think of like it has to be all or nothing. Like say for example, someone's like, well, we have to have free education and we have to have universal health care for everyone, or I'm not voting for any of the politicians that don't promote that kind of stuff. That's tough in the USA because you have a party on the right that gets you to be scared of healthcare and gets you to be scared of education, right? So you have to fight that misinformation. And then you got to figure out a way to get money out of politics, right? So it's tough to address that kind of stuff. And I'm not against education and healthcare. I'm actually all for it. I'm just saying, I'm encouraging guys to, think about when you participate in these systems. Is like if you don't participate, that's what you get. You get the Trump stuff because it's frankly really awful right now in USA. I'm just telling you the truth on these things. Not everything they do is completely awful. Like I think that going after the cartels is at least at least they're doing something. And I know there's a lot of people probably that work within the system of, say, the airlines or whatever that are deeply concerned about public safety, but the problem is their bosses aren't. Or the people, who are concerned about it, they're just completely underfunded, right? Or their colleagues get fired. So that's sort of my thoughts on the overall system. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you all guys in the next video.